Hi, everyone. Today, I want to take a few minutes in this quick video to talk about multi-page documents and how to get organized and manage those pages. So first, I'm going to set up a new document here. I'm in the new document window already, and I just want to point out that I have the checkbox at the bottom here that says Preview clicked. That means that in the background, I can see an example of what my page is going to look like. I've already entered the dimensions that I'd like for my width and my height. I've also chosen an orientation. So I have the portrait orientation. This is like a vertical, say a magazine or some kind of multi-page booklet. And I have facing pages checked. Anytime you're doing something that's going to be bound, something like a magazine, a folder, a booklet, anything that has a fold, that's going to be a facing pages document. I've also entered the number of pages just to start. And you can always add and subtract pages later, but if you know you're going to use at least a certain number of pages, go ahead and enter those here. I've got 4 pages to start, and that's all I'm going to need for this project. You also have some other settings. Don't forget, again, you can change these later from within your document, but you can also set these up here. I've added 6 columns. That's going to be the beginning of my layout grid. And if I scroll down here, I have margins set at 1/2 inch and the bleed and slugs. So the bleed, remember, is that little extra bit of space around the outside of the document that if anything you want to print to the edge of the paper needs to go past the edge of your document. And that bleed is just a guideline. It's a little red guideline to help you know where to stretch those out to, how big they need to be. The slug can be set to 0. And I'll click Create. So right away in my Pages tab on the right-hand side, I can see my 4 pages. Note that they're organized in such a way that they represent the way that they will sit in a folded or bound document. So page 1 is on the right-hand side. It's like the cover. Page 2 and 3 are going to be side by side. That's imagine opening up that folded page. And page 4 is the back, or it's going to end up on the left-hand side as the, in this case, 4-page folded booklet closes. I also want to point out that each one of these has a letter on it. Besides having a number below, it has a letter, and that letter is a representation of which parent page is being applied to that. Now, we're going to come back to parent pages in a minute. They are here also in our Pages palette, and they are the way that we can, what do I want to say, create a template or guide that will be applied to that page. You can have multiple parent pages in a document. For the moment, we're just going to work with one of them. All right, first, let's say we want to add some pages. At the very bottom of your Pages palette, you will have a little square with a plus sign that when you roll over, it says Create a New Page. I'm going to click on that, and you'll notice as I add pages, InDesign adds them to the side of the document, in the orientation that they would be if we were to add more pages to our folded bound item. So page 5 lines up with page 4, that becomes a spread. 6 and 7 become a spread. Page 8 is going to be the left-hand side. This would be the equivalent of having 2 pieces of paper folded. We make actually 8 pages in our document. Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and add some content here so we can kind of see how pages move around. On page 1, I'm going to navigate to the page by double-clicking on the page. So if I double-click on the page 1 in my Pages palette, I will go to page 1 in my workspace. Let's see. Let's just make a nice big number 1 here. All right. So page 1, let's copy that. We're going to go back to our pages. I'll click on page 2. Notice in my workspace that page 2 and 3 are also side by side, just as they are in the Pages palette. So I'm going to mark page 2. Page 3 over here. And let's do one more. Just putting these in here because what this is going to do is let us sort of see how these pages move around. When they're blank on our Pages palette, they all look the same. And this is a quick way to sort of visualize what we've got. Now, one thing you're going to notice is that in the Pages palette, the content of these pages appears on these thumbnails. So as you build up your document, you're going to see where it is that you have content on your Pages palette. Okay. Now, the content of the page stays with the page, right? So if I decide that the content that's on page 2 really should be later in my document, I can click on page 2 in my Pages palette and move that page to wherever I'd like it to go. And you'll notice as I do this that I get this little, it's like just a vertical line that indicates where I'm going to insert this based on where my mouse is moving that. So if I wanted to go after page 7, I'll drag it till I see that line after page 7 and I will let go. But keep in mind, this is just like a deck of cards here. As I take that card or page from where it was in position 2, the second page, and I move it to page 7, everything else bumps up, right? So what was page 2 has become page 7 and everything else has moved forward. If I take page 4 and I move it in between 6 and 7, it's actually going to become page 6 because pages 3, 4, and 5 bump up, right? So in that way, we can sort of see how I can reorganize or organize the content in a multi-page publication. Now, mind you, that the content that we have here now, these numbers, are on numbered pages. They are on pages 1 through 8, right? Our parent pages are the pages that define the style on pages 1 through 8, but they are not content pages. So let's take a look at those. Parent pages are on the Pages palette at the top. They will be marked, the default one is going to be A parent. And if I double click on A parent, that will take me to these 2 blank pages. And I know that I have both of these pages selected because they're both highlighted in blue here. Now, if I add content to a parent page, let's just start with a big circle here. Okay. Now my parent pages each have a piece of content. This red oval on the left-hand page and the blue rectangle on the right-hand page. But know what happens to every other page in my document. All of the pages in this document have a parent page applied to them. They have this little A in the corner. So the A parent page is telling each of these that they should have the content that is on the parent page. If I go to page 2, which happens to have the number 3 right now, page 2 has that red circle. All right. I'm going to renumber these so that this is easier for us to understand. Right, page 2 and page 3. Page 2 has a red circle or oval, and there's a blue rectangle on page 3. That is because they are a left-hand page and a right-hand page. And my parent pages say left-hand pages get red ovals, right-hand pages get blue rectangles. Okay. If I move page 2 the content for page 2 to a different place in my document. So let's say I pick up page 2 and I move it, let's see, I'm going to move it after page 5. Okay. The content of page 2 moves to the right-hand side, but that has also bumped the content for all my other pages from where they were to a different position. So now page 3 is on the left-hand side with a red oval, and what was page 4 is now on the right-hand side with a blue rectangle. Okay. So all to say that the content on your parent page is static on the right and the left. When we're designing a template or guide to use throughout a multi-page publication, we want to be mindful that the things that are on the left-hand page in our parent pages will always be on the left-hand side, and the things that are on the right-hand page will always be on the right-hand side of our spread. Now, the term spread refers to those 2 pages that sit side by side. Any pages that we will see at the same time when the document is being read or opened. So imagine that this left-hand page might have page numbers or a header or a footer or a style along the outside edge, some sort of identifying mark. That's what's going to go on the parent page, left-hand page. And that way, all of my left-hand pages have that. They have that same organization. Similarly on the right-hand side. So if, for example, I wanted all of my left-hand pages to have a box on the corner here. Let's make that black. That has a big graphic page number in it. Let's see, actually, type tool. Now, when I look at all of my left-hand pages, I have that box and that text, right? At the moment, though, if I look at my right-hand pages, say page 1, I don't have that because on my parent pages, I didn't put anything on the right-hand page. If I want this to appear on the right-hand page, I am going to have to copy it. I'm going to do Option drag, and I'm holding my Shift key so I can actually drag it straight across here and place it in the same place. Let's give it a letter over here. So now if I look at these 2 pages together, you can see that I have something on each side, right? A left-hand mark, a right-hand mark, a different style for each. If I go back out and I click on page 2, I can see 2 and 3 here. I see those marks on pages 2 and 3. Okay. In our next video, we're going to talk about how to use this when we make a grid for an editorial publication, something like a magazine, a newsletter, a book even. All right. I'll see you again in a few minutes.